Welcome to the third part of our People of One Fire series on the Petroglyphs of Georgia. First, we'll be looking at the Metcalf Stone, which was found near Columbus, Georgia. While looking for stones to make a barbecue pit in 1966, Manfred Metcalf picked up a slab of sandstone about 9.5 inches or 23 centimeters square near his home in the metropolitan Columbus area on the Chattahoochee River in west central Georgia. The fall line passes through Columbus, creating a series of cascades that have always been a barrier to navigation from the ocean. He noticed strange symbols on the stone, so immediately took the stone to Dr. Joseph Mahan at the Columbus Museum of History. Cyrus Gordon examined a plaster cast of the stone in 1968 that was sent to him by Mahan, who was then head of the Institute for the Study of American Cultures. Gordon thought that it might be the form of Minoan Linear A script that was developing towards a true alphabetic script. Stanislav Sergett, a professor at Northwest Semitic Languages at the University College of Los Angeles, also identified the script as a version of Linear A. However, archaeologists in Georgia who had no background in linguistics or Minoan civilization immediately thereafter attacked these interpretation symbols and permanently discredited its authenticity. As you can see, it had been impossible for any ship, even a canoe, to go upstream at Columbus. All would have been stopped at this place. For this reason, very early along, this location became a site of major Native American towns and eventually became the capital of the Creek Confederacy. The stone is held today by Columbus State University in Columbus. It can be seen by the public. It obviously is made by man, despite complaints that it's not authentic. Yes, it was. It's been numerous scientists have checked the engravings and the facts behind its discovery and have determined it is authentic. Recently, the People of One Fire asked one of the world's leading experts on Bronze Age writing systems to take a look at photographs of it. He determined these were Minoan Linear A script. In fact, he was shocked. He asked me several times, "Are you sure this is not something that someone picked up in Crete and carried to Georgia?" I said, "No, it was found in the ground in Georgia." Part of the reason that the stone became so easy to discredit by archaeologists was that Dr. Mahan extrapolated the script on the Metcalf Stone to then theorize that the Yuchi people were descended from immigrants from Crete and actually wrote a book on the subject. However, the Yuchi never said that they were from the Mediterranean basin, but merely that their ancestors came across the Atlantic from the home of the sun. And in fact, the DNA in the Yuchi indicates they came from northwestern Europe. It is all from such places as Scandinavia, the British Isles, Iberia, and the coastal France. Next, we go to the Tugaloo Stone. It's an amazing artifact that is little known, even within the local region where it is on display. I became first aware of the Tugaloo Stone in February of 2017. I drove over to the Travelers Rest State Tourist site for my monthly continuing education project. Architects must do something every month to expand their knowledge of their profession, and then noticed the stone in the back and photographed it. The Tugaloo Stone, or Tocoa Rock as it's called by some, is located at the rear of the Travelers Rest State Historic Site, 7 miles east of Tocoa, Georgia. In the northeastern part of the state, it has sat at the ground at the same location since around 1796 and has generally been ignored by archaeological profession. When mentioned at all in news articles or professional journals, there's a replicated statement. Archaeologists believe that it is an example of an ancient Cherokee writing system. Okay. The stone was found by a laborer working for a man who was developing an inn nearby. near the banks of the Tugaloo River, which is a tributary of the Savannah River. It was then carried back to the house, and because it was so interesting, the owner elected not to use it in the construction of his chimney and foundation. Instead, put it in back of the house, right here, and used it as a step for people to get onto carriages or horses. It has stayed at that same location since roughly 1796. Toccoa, Georgia is located off the map and to the southwest of the stone. The location is not in the gold belt. It's right at the southern edge of the gold belt, but it was the point where the head of navigation occurred for boats coming up the Tugaloo River from Augusta. Augusta also having waterfalls that stop passage below there. A major Indian trade path crossed here, which is now US Highway 123, and continued on into the gold belt. This would have been the nearest location to disembark if one was going to the Nacoochee Valley. This is what the location where the stone was found looks like now. Supposedly at the time it was on a bank that was a little bit higher up, but the river has been dammed. You're seeing it now when the river has been drained down some. The lake has been drained down. There's no appearance of any bank here, but this is the approximate location which found it. The stone remained, as it turns out, upside down for over 2 centuries, and it was generally ignored. When I got back home, I looked at the photograph and immediately noticed standard Scandinavian Bronze Age navigation astronomical symbols. Here you see here and here. I was curious about the curves and the perpendicular lines at the top, so I turned the photograph upside down and was astonished to see 3 Bronze Age boats. Unbelievable. This appears to be a Minoan boat. You notice it has a little house-like structure in the rear and curves up sharply in the front. This is obviously the typical boat of the Øresund Channel, the Skåne boat. On the right, this appears to be a Phoenician ship with a sail and oars. Very similar lines. This is not as certain. There are many other symbols there we will be discussing later on in our series, but as you can see, this is about as good as it gets for proving arrival of Bronze Age explorers or miners or immigrants to northeast Georgia. Here we see other sides of the rock. The top part appears to be a map of the river. I'm not certain. These are very abstract, but my guess is it's some type of map, this being the curve of the river, this maybe being a blow up, but it's not quite clear. Now the bottom is clearly a map of the heavens. You see the sun or larger stars, smaller stars, you see constellations, some type of navigation lines here. So this is not quite clear. It might be a early form of writing system. And then this symbol, which was used in the Middle Ages and early Renaissance to imply a UFO. What it means there is anybody's guess. This right here is probably either a comet or an asteroid. The drawings on the edges of the rock on each side are not quite as clear, but they're very typical of Scandinavian Bronze Age art. This symbol here appears constantly on Swedish petroglyphs. Not quite sure. This might be also constellations in the sky. They have kind of the feeling of a constellation. Unlike the petroglyphic boulders on major trade paths within the Georgia Gold Belt, there are no concentric circle motifs on any side of the Tugaloo Stone. However, there are some symbols which are found on the Forsyth petroglyphic boulder we discussed in part 2. But the Forsyth boulders also contains concentric circle motifs. The symbols on the Tugaloo Stone may have been carved by members of different Bronze Age cultures at different times. In fact, part of the stone may actually be tourist graffiti. Leroy was here. but other sections of stone are definitely serious astronomical or navigational information. In part 4, we'll examine petroglyphs that are not located on major trails of the Georgia Gold Belt. We'll see you there. Thank you.